You know you need fiber for a healthy gut, but do you actually know how to get it? Quaker's been serving up fiber since 1877, with over 100 great-tasting, good source of fiber options to choose from. Whether you like old-fashioned oats, instant oatmeal, granola, or oatmeal squares, Quaker makes it delicious. So good. Get your fiber with Quaker. Shop Quaker's good source of fiber products at a store near you.
American soccer fans, welcome to episode 179 of the USA Soccer Cast. We're bringing you everything about the U.S. national teams, the players, the leagues, and everything else that impacts the game of soccer in these United States. I'm Donald Wine. The United States men's national team are entering the final window before the roster for the 2026 World Cup is named. And when you look at the roster for these upcoming friendlies against Belgium on Saturday and Portugal on Tuesday, we might have received a look at who is in the driver's seat for one of those spots. It's a 27-player roster. It gives us a look at some of the guys who might be the front runners to make the World Cup roster when it is announced finally in May. I believe May 26th is when the announcement is supposed to happen in New York City. Head coach Mauricio Pochettino will undoubtedly have his work cut out for him when making these roster decisions, and it's long been hinted that the March window would be a peek at who he feels has the inside track, barring injury, to making that World Cup team. So let's first take a look at this 27-man roster. For the goalkeepers, we have Chris Brady, Patrick Schulte, Matt Freese, and Matt Turner. Roman Celentano was on the roster originally. On Sunday, he was held out of FC Cincinnati's match due to muscle tightness. And out of precaution for him, he was removed from the roster. Patrick Schulte replaced him. Your defenders, Max Arston, Alex Freeman, Mark McKenzie, Tim Ream, Chris Richards, Anthony Robinson, Miles Robinson, Joe Scally, and Austin Trusty. Midfielders, Sebastian Berhalter, Johnny Cardoso, Weston McKennie, Aiden Morris, Gio Reyna, Christian Roldan, Tanner Tessman, and Malik Tillman. And then your forwards, Brendan Aronson, Patrick Ajamang, Florian Balogun, Ricardo Pepi, Christian Pulisic, and Tim Weah. First thoughts on this roster are, one, Gio Reyna, who has not played that much this season for Borussia Mönchengladbach, is on this roster. We will talk a little bit after the break about why he made the roster and what Pochettino's thought process was in bringing him in when he hasn't gotten a lot of playing time. We have Anthony Robinson. Jedi's back. He's back on the roster, and his injury issues hopefully behind him. He's playing well, and hopefully he could be a really big boost for this team at 100%. Patrick Ajabang is on this roster. There is no Serginho Dest, no Tyler Adams or Haji Wright, all of them out due to injury / knocks that they've picked up. Dest hopefully will be back for PSV by the end of the season, and that would hopefully give him time to show that he is 100% healthy and fit for the World Cup. Tyler Adams and Haji Wright, more precautionary injuries, not something that's expected to be long-term, but enough to keep him out for this camp. We have a lot of things we want to talk about with this roster. We have some audio from when Pochettino had a press conference when he announced this roster about Noki Banks, about Gio Reyna, about so many other guys who are either on this roster. So let's take a quick break. We will analyze everything about this roster and the upcoming window against Belgium and Portugal after this.
My day kicks off with a refreshing Celsius energy drink, then straight to the gym. Pre-K pickup, back home to meal prep. Time for my fire station shift. One more Celsius, gotta keep the lights on. When the 3-alarm hits, I'm ready. Celsius. Live, fit, go. Grab a cold, refreshing Celsius at your local retailer or locate now at Celsius.com.
Spring starts at the Home Depot, and we are bringing the heat to your backyard this season. Fire up the flavor with our wide variety of grills for under $300, like the Next Grill 4-burner gas grill that's perfect for hosting your spring cookout. Then set the scene and turn your outdoor space into the go-to spot with patio sets for every budget. bring it this season with grills that deliver flavor and patios that set the vibe from the Home Depot. Start your spring with low prices guaranteed at the Home Depot. Exclusions apply. See homedepot.com/price match for details.
Your little one grew 3 inches overnight. Adorable. Also, expensive. Sell their pint-sized pieces on Depop and list them in minutes with no selling fees. Because somewhere, a dad refuses to pay full price for the clothes his kids will outgrow tomorrow. And he's ready to buy your son's entire wardrobe right now. Consider your future growth spurt budget secured. Start selling on Depop, where taste recognizes taste. Payment processing fees and boosting fees still apply. See website for details.
Zootopia 2 has come home to Disney+.
Let's go!
Get ready for a new case.
We're the greatest partners of all time!
New friends.
Gary the Snake.
And your last name?
The Snake.
Dream Team. New habitats.
Zootopia has a secret reptile population.
You can watch the record-breaking phenomenon at home. Zootopia 2, now available on Disney+, rated PG. And right now you can get Disney Plus and Hulu for just $4.99 a month for 3 months with a special limited time offer. Ends March 24th. After 3 months, plan auto-renews at $12.99 a month. Terms apply.
Hey everyone, are you looking for the latest gear for your U.S. national teams, Major League Soccer, the NWSL, or any other team in the world of soccer? The USA Soccercast has affiliate partnerships that are ready to help you out. Head to linktree.com/USA Soccercast, where we have links to Homage, Fanatics, the MLS store, and Breaking Team. You can get the jersey, shirt, hat, or accessory you're looking for to support your team, while also saving some money and helping this show in the process. Again, linktree.com/USA Soccercast. Click on the links and get your gear. And we thank you as always for your support of the show. We are back. We are continuing our breakdown of the U.S. men's national team roster for this March window. Of course, matches against Belgium and Portugal. The Belgium match taking place on Saturday, the Portugal match on Tuesday. Both top 10 teams and really big tests for the United States. The first thing I want to talk about with this roster is the big story, which is Gio Reyna made this roster, and he has not played that much. I believe it is less than 40 minutes total in 2026 that he has played for Borussia Mönchengladbach. And there's obviously a lot of questions. He had not played that much when he made the roster in November. Of course, he showed out. He scored a goal. He played extremely well. And it was really on that basis that he was invited back into this camp. And so I want to play some audio from Mauricio Pochettino. Again, he took questions from the media shortly after this roster was released last week. And I want you to hear what he had to say about the question of why Gio made this roster as opposed to other guys who might be playing a little bit more than he is with his club. Here's Pochettino.
Hey, I want to ask you about Gio Reyna, and in making your decision to call him in, how you balance or reconcile what he did in November with his lack of minutes for his club the last few months. How did that all work for you in selecting him? Thanks.
Yes, I think Gio was fantastic in November with us. I think everyone praised him in his game against Paraguay, and then in the way that he was involved and committed with the team and with the national team. I think he was. I was really happy with the aspect and the factor that he was involved. Before the last decision for the last roster for the World Cup, I think it's good to see players that maybe are not playing too much, like in that case of Gio, but that is very talented player, and we know how he can add to the national team, is to see if he is affected about that and he is capable to perform with us again. I think we really know that he's a very special, talented and very special player, and I think to give the possibility, even if it's not playing too much in his club, if can be very useful for us. That is our mindset in the way that we made the decision to bring Gio in this camp.
To follow up on Steve's question a little bit, in general, and for the World Cup roster in particular in May, will you value more how a player has performed for the national team in the last year and a half that you've been there, or how that player is doing in the moment in a different environment with his club, how fit he is, how much form, good form he's in? How do you weigh those two things when it comes to the final decision? Thank you.
It's an art because every single player is different and can add different things to the team. We cannot follow some rule because I think it's not fair to judge all in the same way. But I think it's two different things that we appreciate and we expect for the player to add to the national team. But that because I think we were working a lot in more than 1 year and a half that me and we start to work together. I think the most important is what the player can add to the team and if can be the right player, to help to perform the team. That is why we don't follow exactly the rule in all the player exactly in the same way because all are completely different character, different profiles, different quality, different talent, and that is the most important is to try to find, to detect the right, selection that to be, very, very close to perform in the way that we perform in the last two camps. No, I think October and November were a very good example that maybe, with different roster, different names, but the team perform. And what we need to do is, to have the possibility to see again in this camp the possibility with different roster because are going to be 10 different players from the last roster in November is to try to perform in the same way because I think the Paraguay, Uruguay are going to be similar to Portugal with all the respect, no? Portugal and Belgium. We are playing with top level, teams, and I think it's important to perform again. And like I told you, that is for me that are World Cup games, and that is important that we can perform again.
So it's interesting, right? It's clear that Gio Reyna is a special case. He is a case unlike any other guy in this player pool because when he's on this national team and he excels, Pochettino's determined there's no other player that can complement for that. There's no other player who can make up what Gio Reyna provides. And that is true. There is the question, though, of how fit is he? How sharp is he, given that he's not playing week to week with Gladbach? And, even his teammate, Joe Scally, is playing most weeks for the same team. Gio is not. Both of them make this camp. And it's interesting that Gio makes this camp, and there's other guys who aren't playing that much, who, like Yunus Musa, who is excluded from this camp. Yunus Musa is not playing for Atalanta. He's likely on the outside looking in for this, and he is not getting the same case that Gio Reyna has. And neither are some of the other guys who aren't playing for their club on a consistent, regular basis. And so I think the one thing is, a lot of people said, hey, what counts more? Is it what they're doing week in and week out for their club, or can they make that up by coming into this national team and excelling? And that's kind of what we're seeing with Gio Reyna is when he's on the national team, he's dynamite. When he gets on the field, he's making plays, he's scoring goals, he's creating, he's doing the things that he's on this team to do. And then he goes back to his club and sits on the bench, gets the spot appearance every now and then, either due to injury, but now it's really due to tactical moves on behalf of his coach. And his coach is saying we're not finding a way to get him on the field. And so this happens with players, and I think in the case of Gio Reyna, he really has to show in this national team camp that, hey, it doesn't matter what I'm doing for my club, you got to take me. And this is obviously a final opportunity for him to show Pochettino up close and this coaching staff, you need me on that plane. You need me on that plane to California, but you need me on this roster. You want me on the field because I can deliver. And that's what all these guys are kind of thinking about. And it's this is a competitive camp for many reasons, but most especially because these guys who did make the roster, it's their final chance to show that they deserve to be here. There's 27 guys on this roster, 4 goalkeepers, of course, and 26 make the World Cup. Again, I mentioned there's no Serginho Dest, there's no Tyler Adams, there's no Haji Wright. Those 3 guys would easily factor into that final roster when they're healthy. And if all 3 of them are healthy, I think all 3 of them would be on this roster. So that's 4 guys, in theory, that is in this camp who may not hear their names be called for that World Cup roster. And so that competition's fierce. And guys want to be in this camp to show up close and personal. This is what I can do. And this is why when you fill out that team sheet in May, my name should be on it. There's one guy, obviously, who's been an X factor here, and that's Nokai Banks. Nokai Banks is a kid of obviously 20 years old. He's a dual national, German and American. He has played with the youth of the United States, but has been getting inquiries from both the United States and German national teams about being on their roster. Not necessarily the roster for the World Cup, but being a part of their program moving forward. And he has the chance to be a dynamic defender. One that, again, this player pool would really, really benefit from. But he has not yet made a decision about whether he wants to represent the United States moving forward or Germany. There's been a lot of reports out there that says that he is leaning towards Germany if they called him, but Germany has not called him. He has not made a German roster, and he has declined to call up, at least for in the case of the United States, because he wants to keep his options open. He has not made a decision. At this point, you got to rule out him being on a World Cup roster. I mean, not necessarily 100%, but you got to rule him out for all intents and purposes, because the major question is, who would he replace? Having not been a part of the system, having been involved in one camp that was back, I believe, in September, and at this point is not really doing enough to really maybe usurp one of these other guys that have been established on this team. Sure, Pochettino could bring him in and replace and sit somebody out. That's not outside the question, but it's a question of who he would replace on that defensive line to the point where you're putting him in and also playing him, given an opportunity to play. You don't want to bring him in to be guy number 26 and, basically ruin his opportunity to represent Germany if that's what he wants to do, which is why he's kind of turned down this call-up. But you also don't want to guarantee a World Cup spot for him either. That's not going to go over well with the rest of the crew. So I reserve the judgment for him to make the decision that he wants to make at the timetable that he wants to make it. We kind of saw this with Lily Ioannis, right? She was someone called in, or what we wanted to call in before the 2023 World Cup. She didn't, or I'm sorry, before the 2024 Olympics. She didn't quite make that cut because she wasn't ready to make that decision. But after the Olympics was done, she made the decision to represent the United States. All as well, she's one of our best players in my mind. And she's probably going to be a part of the 2027 team next year, assuming they qualify, provided they qualify at the end of the year. So I say that to say Banks is a guy who could be a part of this team for a very long time. But we don't have to rush him in now because we think he could maybe factor in at the World Cup. I don't know if that's a pressure that you want to put on a kid, not just to represent, to pick one country over another, but to pick a host country that's going to be a team with a lot of pressure behind it. And for a 20-year-old kid who everyone is basically saying, we have to have this kid, we have to have this kid, you don't want to put any extra pressure on him to make that decision quickly, or force a quick decision that he may not be fully comfortable with. And you want a guy to be fully comfortable. I think to talk about the dual nationals and some players basically saying, some older players, former players saying that they don't want dual nationals on the team. They want someone who represents the crest and represents the country and wants to be fully dialed in. We've had dual nationals that are fully dialed in. Every time. Everyone in this country is a hyphen, in my mind. Most of us think of us as of ourselves as a blank American, right? You're an American who has ties or roots to somewhere else. That's the beauty of America. We are a melting pot, and Banks fits into that. Tim Weah fits into that. Landon Donovan fits into that. He's a dual national. Fabian Johnson fits into that. Jermaine Jones fits into that. They're all, when they were on this team, they represented. They knew what it was about. The jerseys that we're wearing are part because Tim Weah said, I want something to represent us, not them. He didn't say them. He said us, the United States. They're all fully dialed in. And I think anyone who chooses this team in a dual national situation is choosing which one they want to be fully invested in. And if they're not going to be fully invested in this, that's a decision they're going to make. But I feel like there's a lot of pressure being put on this kid. And I don't want to see that kid have any extra pressure because the decision alone is pressure filled. And to do it at a time where a World Cup is coming up, that again just adds a lot of elements to it that I'm sure is affecting his decision. So I leave it to him to make the best decision possible for him. If he represents the United States, that's terrific. Would love to have him. But if he wants to represent Germany, that's his prerogative, and we should wish him well as he chooses to do that. But I don't expect that decision to come before the World Cup, so I don't expect him to be on the team for the World Cup. So the guys that I think didn't make the roster, I think, again, you could say should be on this roster or might have a chance to make this World Cup team. Guys like Alex Zendejas. I think, honestly, I would take him. If I were the coach, I would have Zendejas on my 26 because he provides a dynamic that is very underrated and I feel like is underappreciated. He also is arguably, he's the number 10 for Club America, the biggest team in North America, and he's excelling at it. And I feel like when he comes to the national team back in November, he scored. He's taken his opportunities. And the problem is he just hasn't been given those opportunities, despite the fact that he's performing week in and week out. And I think when people thought about Gio Reyna not or making the roster, they pointed to Zendejas not making the roster, his exclusion for Gio to be on the roster. And I'm not saying that they're direct competitors for a particular spot, but you talk about one kid who's not making the field for his club, but excelling on a national team. And you have one guy who's the star for his club team, one of the biggest club teams in North America, and is not getting a sniff sometimes at this national team. It's like year-long stints between his inclusion for the camp. Now, someone asked Mauricio Pochettino whether the guys who didn't make this roster are basically out. And of course, he wouldn't say that they were out, but he did have something to say about guys who did make the roster and what they need to do to get back into consideration for the final 26. Here's what Poch had to say.
To be honest, today, no, we build a roster with 27 players, and my 27 player they will have the possibility when we start next weekend. After next weekend, the possibility to be in the starting 11, and always is about performance, but feelings, intuition, how we measure, how we use the data, how we use all the technology today into measure all the player. But the combination, that is not a machine that can make the right combination. Is that our taste, our intuition, our feelings, and through our experience, our eyes. And that is why I cannot say that he's going to be, maybe can be on the starting 11 or the first, choice for me in the center back, or maybe not. And that is why football is very, very dynamic, that can change in every single moment. Talking about Ashimen, it's very competitive, the position, because we have Hashi Rai, we have Patrick Ashimen, we have Ricardo Pepi, we have Florian Balogun, we have also different player, that we can talk about that. Too many good players in that position that is not easy to select. But of course, all are going to have the possibility to be in the roster. And what I can tell the players that today they didn't reach the roster is not that they are not going to have possibility to be in the final roster. And the players that today are in the roster, they cannot think they are going to be in the final roster because we go to Atlanta and maybe we make some picture preparing things for marketing or for things like this, because that is the last opportunity maybe to make this type of thing. That is why all that we were talking always is true. I am happy with more than 26 player because in 1 year and a half I think we made different selection, and when we will assess nearly 2 years working with more than 70 players, that is going to be the final roster because there that machine, not only mine, all the coaching staff, we are going to add or to put in the table all our capacity, knowledge about to select the right 26, not the best, the right 26 with the possibility to compete in the best way for representing our country in that exciting World Cup, that amazing event that is the best in the world.
So again, there's still time is basically what he said. Zendejas, Yunus Musa might be on the outside looking in, but again, you never know. Luca De La Torre, Josh Sargent if he starts getting hot, Paxton Aronson, Brian White, those guys have some work to do, but there's still time to do it. And it's clear that Pochettino and his coaching staff are going to see as many club games as possible to scout these guys out, to see how they're doing, to see how they're progressing, and then finally determines who that roster is going to be. And I think there's one thing that Mauricio Pochettino said that's important. He said, I want, quote, the right 26, not the best 26 for the World Cup, end quote. The right 26. It's not going to be our top 26 guys because we need to have a balanced team. I think in the end, he's looking for that chemistry, that mix of what he wants on the field and how he wants to play on the field, and the players that would fit into that, and also guys who can dynamically back some of the stars up. And so for all these guys that are not on this roster, that are not going to be competing against Belgium and Portugal this weekend, there is still time for them to make this World Cup. There's still time for Serginho Dest to get healthy, for Tyler Adams to get healthy, for Haji Wright to get back to 100% fitness. There's time for all these guys to show that they deserve to be on this World Cup roster, the most coveted spots since 1994. And I think in the end, a lot of these guys are going to play their way onto the team. There's guys who are on this roster who are not going to be on the final roster in May. And that's reality. But that's what this competition comes from. And I hope that translates onto the field against two top 10 teams, because I think all these guys have the pressure to say, I want to show that I can help this team beat a top 10 team, because that's what's going to need to happen for us to win a World Cup, for us to advance far in this World Cup. So that will do it for episode 179 of the USA Soccer Cast. Thank you for listening. Remember, you can find us on Blue Sky, Twitter, and YouTube. Follow us on all of those sites at USA Soccer Cast. Subscribe, rate, and review our shows. It helps us get in front of new people, and it's greatly appreciated. Tell your friends about us. Finally, head to linktree.com/USA SoccerCast to check out our affiliate links and our stimulus store. We have everything you need to watch the beautiful game and follow your teams, and using these links also helps support the show. We'll talk to you again soon, y'all. Peace.